welcome to another episode of More Than My Size. I'm your host, Nimade, or That African Butterfly, as I'm known on social media.
And I'm her very happy but reluctant co-host because she's the star. AP, also known as APY Black on social media.
And we are so happy to be bringing you another episode. We are still going strong and loving it. Today, we are talking about faking famous. So we're calling it faking. I want to say faking the funk, but it's not. It's faking the fame.
Oh, it's funk. And it stinks. I don't like the stench. Okay. Yes. So I don't know if you guys are familiar. There is this pretty cool documentary on HBO, and it's actually called Fake Famous. And it is where they delve into the world, like the obsession with social media and people's desire to get instantly famous or what they believe to be instantly famous, basically by any means necessary. And there was this guy who he used to write for the New York Times, and around the time social media really became pervasive and we started to see a shift in the culture in terms of influencing and marketing and things like that, he was very for the way that social media had uptick productivity and things like that, and giving us access and reach in ways we didn't have it before. But then he said it became very clear and evident as time went on that there was basically essentially a bad side effect to having social media, and what those side effects were, and how it really encouraged like people's seeking validation, the mental health implications attached to people who are really like heavily tied to social media. And as he began to see that shift, it just got him to wondering and asking questions and things like that. So they decided to interview like a slew of people who were in pursuit of internet fame, right? So
Mhm.
they settled upon like three people who had less than a certain amount of following. So I think everybody had like less than a 5K following or whatever. And he took these three people and decided to make them into instant influencers to see if the faking it till you make it could actually turn into something great. Now, of the three people that he chose, one was a white female, and I'm saying race and gender because it is important here. It speaks to the study. So there was a young white woman, early 20s. She was an actress. We had a white gay male from Atlanta who had moved to LA, and he worked as an assistant to real estate. And then we had a young black man who was a clothing designer and entrepreneur. Now, of the three of them, the young black male was the one who was just kind of like, I need people to bang with me for me. If you can't bang with me for me, I don't want it. I'd rather have like five real genuine followers versus, thousands of ones who don't care. So what they did was they started off by setting everybody up with fake followers. Like they bought these followers and they show you how to do it. And there's not a lack of follower farms, in case you guys are not aware. And I did not know that was such a thing until probably a year, like my first year into using my space on Instagram for business.
Mhm.
And then I learned about the fake follower thing. But they bought everybody these followers, and I think they started everybody off at like 10K. So by the time like all the followers came on, everybody was sitting anywhere between like 10 to 15K following. Then they did all these photo shoots. And this is where it gets like really, it makes you wonder like if what I'm seeing on the internet is ever really real. And
Barely.
show how they fake the funk with these photo shoots, which if you're doing it just creatively, I can dig it. Like it was very resourceful. But if you're doing it and trying to pretend you are doing something other than what you are actually
Right.
doing, that is where it's problematic. They
Yep.
even showed how like they took this young black male, took him to this warehouse where there was this gym set up, right?
Mhm.
It was not like a private gym. They took all these dope photos of him and video, like with the what do you call the camera that flies around? What do you call those
Like a
things?
droid.
Yeah, the droid. And they took all these dope, like cinematic, like videos of him, showed it as him working out in this private gym. And what ends up happening? A real private gym in Hollywood that caters to influencers reaches out to him and asks him to come spend the day. And I'm like,
Yep.
oh, this is what happens.
Yep.
Same with the young lady. So she says she's an actress and she had been working to get all these parts, and she often gets turned away because now apparently in Hollywood with agents, they want you to have an established following on
Yep.
Instagram. So it went from her not getting callbacks to her, like, I think she ends up with the most, she ends up with like 100K following as this is going on. And all of a sudden, she didn't have to pitch to anybody. They are like clamoring for her.
Right.
And I want to note that, let us be very clear about the privilege here, because that ain't happening if you are a brown person or a person of color.
Mhm.
We got to work 10 times harder, if you know, 100 times harder if you're trying to get that access. But for her, it was nothing. She was white, she was thin, she was young. That's all they needed. These brands were sending her jewelry, asking, wanting to take her on these social media influencer trips. The woman had no background in any of these things, and it was being handed to her on a silver platter. And it really made me realize, like, I had heard people talk about faking it till they made it, and I thought it was such cap. But I'm like, is this what people are really doing? Because then what ended up happening was she started gaining followers.
Yeah.
And not only were they buying followers, they also had to buy the engagement too. Like they had to buy the likes and all of those things to keep up appearances, because you know what it looks like if you have a whole bunch of
Right.
followers but no engagement and things like that. I mean, it was a sticky mess. But it
Mhm.
just got me to thinking about like this desire now that our generation has with like this instant fame, and thinking that Instagram or TikTok or whatever it is going to be the thing that blows them out the water.
But
Is it
can I
worth
just say that though? Like the fact that she faked it and then got all of those things is exactly why they want it, right?
it? Right.
Like it actively proves the point that if you do get a bunch of followers, things will start falling in your lap. People will start offering you deals. Like we definitely live in a time where unfortunately followers are currency, so it's a little bit harder if you're someone who like has an actual mission and like a voice and something you're trying to do. But if you're someone who just wants to be like insta famous and get things and blah blah blah, yeah, having a lot of followers is unfortunately how you do that. And you just have to be careful, like you mentioned, because people can really fake it. And the worst part isn't even like, even with her faking it to get those things, like, all right, I hear you there. But the worst is when like people like that then start offering courses. Let me show you how to get a ton of followers. Let me show you how to do what I did. When they know damn well they bought their people and now they want to show us, like that's where I'm upset about it. Like that's where I get annoyed.
Right. And I love that you brought that up, because I remember when I was coming into the space almost feeling as if selling those courses were almost like a requirement, right? Like, okay, I've got the following now, like let me sell the courses. And so I took the opportunity to attend some of the free, seminars where they kind of upsell you on their $5,000 course or their $500 book and this, that, and the third. And I realized, like, you guys don't know what you're talking about. Not only do I know that you guys don't know what you're talking about, a lot of you have literally copied and pasted
All it is, yeah.
research that is already available online for free. And how do
Mm-hmm.
I know this? Because I've Googled, like, I'm a
Yep.
researcher.
Yep.
A few years back at TCF, at the Curry Fashionista Style Expo, she did a blogger mastermind and I attended. Well, no, I didn't get to attend, but I did buy the booklet. Now her booklet was like $8, $12, was not anything astronomical. However, the key points, the notes, the helping you plan, helping you focus was value, like was priceless. Actually, it was like really invaluable, and she wasn't upcharging for it. It wasn't something that she was trying to like gain all this money from. It was kind of like, I'm charging you for my labor and my time for putting this together, basically.
Right.
But it was actually useful versus seminars that I've attended where I got nothing, gained nothing, learned nothing. And it's like this teaser where it's like, but we want you to come spend this amount of money and I can show you how to get a brand deal with whatever brand of the hour. And I'm just like, you
That's
got
the worst because that's what those conferences usually are. It's usually just them pitching their stuff that they then want you to buy. And you're like, so this is just a sales pitch. That's all
it's
this
a
is.
sales pitch, and there's no neat way to put it other than that. It's like the timeshare sale, like, you know what I mean? So I'm just, there's so much that could be said about social media. I personally feel like, there's great points and aspects of social media. I love that we have access now to representation that we did not have in mainstream media before social media came along. It's
Mhm.
opened doors for a lot of us who are in marginalized bodies to be able to do things we would not otherwise be doing, or we'd be way behind in the race to get to. But at the same time, like that man pointed out, I do not remember his name. I'm so sorry. He was a journalist. As he pointed out in that documentary, there are bad side effects to all of this. I when social media really started to become a thing, I was like 19, and that was around the time MySpace and Facebook had come about. Now with Facebook, it had only been for college students for a while. So MySpace was like the next thing where it was kind of like to the public. And I remember establishing my presence there on MySpace, and I took to it really fluidly, and it was not something I struggled with or anything like that. Like, it was easy peasy. Back then, there was not a lot of emphasis yet on using it as a marketing thing.
No,
And
but that
honestly,
top eight though, that top eight costs
that
so
top
many,
eight, well, let me
so
tell
many
you,
people.
the sex industry actually capitalized on the marketing first. And I know that because that was like my first job, in that industry, my first and only job in that industry. But when I was the fetish model, the woman who owned the company that I worked for, she like quickly learned how to monetize on that. Like, she had me write my page of like any personal information, and everything became about me just being like the fantasy that her site was selling, right?
Mhm.
And then we had to make our page private. And then she used, strategically. Now back then it was the wild wild west, so nudity and things like that were a lot more permissible before, whatever. And so she had the page set up so it was like you could see it was like teasers, and you could see all the various women. And then it was like, and if you go to this website and plug in your credit card information, you can get full access to such, like, for all the shady stuff that she did. And she is shady, she's still out here running her business with my pictures. That's another story. She, for all of that, like, she really learned how to monetize on MySpace back then, and that was 2006, 2007, during that time frame. And then we kind of saw when Facebook became public, people kind of started to shift over there, and Facebook kind of started that thing. And then we saw what came after Facebook.
I mean, nothing really. I mean, Instagram.
Instagram, right?
I mean,
So
Facebook's still like the thing, but yeah, Instagram was like the next big.
yeah, the next big thing. And they were innovative in the sense that it was like a photo gallery. It's like,
Yeah.
hey, we're not only now we're taking social media and we're making it fun, we're giving you visuals, right? Then it was like, before it was TikTok, it was
There's Vine.
Vine and all
There's
those, like.
Snapchat.
And what we saw social media doing was fine tuning, right? To adapt to the short attention span of people who are getting lazier and lazier. Like,
My
folks,
attention span is so short right now because of it.
look, listen, people are in these streets struggling to read captions. They're like, oh, this is a novel. I'm like, really? Because
Yeah.
when's the last time any of y'all picked up a novel? Because you would know this caption is not that long.
Mhm.
But look what social media is doing, right? We're giving you these micro bite-sized snaps, and
I'll
that's how the
fast
world
forward through a 1 minute video. It will be 1 minute and I'll be like 10 seconds. I was like, oh, this is taking forever. And fast forward through a 1 minute video.
and which makes like my whole career on YouTube very questionable. Like, I have a YouTube page for, makeup and beauty because I get in depth. Thankfully, there is an audience for that,
Mhm.
but it's like some videos, if they're like 30 minutes or more, like, I'm not expecting high viewership on that because I'm like, I know. But then when there are people who are like, no, I love, I sit down because, like me, I can binge watch Jackie Anna or Robert Welsh
Yeah.
or whoever I'm into, and I'm cool with that. Like, I'll put it on like I'm watching Law and Order, right? And like, I will do my blog work and watch makeup tutorials.
Well, I
But
think that that speaks to even with the whole followers and all of that. Like, if people like you, they will follow you no matter what, because there are people who, like, I will see a long video and be like, I'm not clicking on that. But then, like, I love makeup and mystery with Bailey Sarian, or however you say her last name, and it'll be like a 45-minute video, and I'll click on it and play it while I work and play it while I do other stuff because I enjoy the content. And so I think that that is really like that authenticity is really important. It's something that I
oh,
try to stick to
keyword, keyword.
because if people rock with you, they rock with you. And as much as there people are out there that like selling courses and telling you like the best way to do whatever, the truth is most people with a ton of followings like went viral for some reason and blew up that way. And then people found them and followed them. It's not because they have some secret code. And when you look at it, like there's a lot of people out there with a lot of followers, and I look at their page and I'm like, there's like no content. And then there's people with very few followers where their pages are beautiful and you can tell they think about it and they put effort into it, and they don't have a lot of followers. And it's not because they're not doing the work, it's just because they haven't blown up the way they should yet, or and I hope that they will,
I hope
and
so
they may
too.
not. But you just have to continue. That's when you have to find in yourself, like, what do you care about? Do you care about the content you're putting out there and hoping it matches with the right people? Or do you care about having a lot of followers and using those followers to get stuff you want? If that's all you care about, fine, buy your followers, do your thing. But if you
Yeah,
care
but
about
even
content, you're gonna have to
that
put the
whole following thing to get what you want, like a lot of brands that come for you when you have a large following don't necessarily, like, at least for me personally, I will only speak from my personal space, but they don't necessarily align with what my mission is, what I talk about, they're just trying
but
to find a way to make it meld. And I'm
that's because
like,
you're on the other side of it. You're on the side of it where you have a message, you have a purpose, you have a goal, and you're putting that out there. You are blessed that that message has reached a lot of people and will continue to reach a lot of people because it's something good, but you're not in it for the I want stuff. Now, somebody who is in it for the I want stuff and I want to do things, they're the type of person who will buy the followers and they don't care if the brand aligns with them. You care because you have a message and you have a purpose and you have a goal. But someone who just wants cool things and wants a lot of followers, they don't care if the brand aligns with them. Anybody who jumps in their DMs and says, hey, I'll give you a discount code, they're like, yeah, let's do it. Because at the end of the day, that's their
damn,
goal.
I'm
And
so done with discount codes. Don't get me started. But like when you talk about that viral moment, so I remember when I started out, like I didn't have a huge following. I think the first time I went to an event, I had like 600, 700 followers or something like that, maybe not even that much. And after that event, after a plug for Mercy, who was a guest on our show a couple of weeks back, after a plug from her and Plus Model Magazine's on their website and also on their social media, it upticked. But it was one white dress, you guys. It was a white dress from Lifestyle Honor 2018 that apparently put me on the map because it got a lot of shares, it got a lot of views, and people loved it. And then more and more women. Now, I got lucky in a sense that as much as I hate that there was a lot of men that came, it was a lot of women who arrived because they realized, oh, this is someone who's large and she looks like me. Not exactly, but our bodies are larger, right? So for them, it was like, oh my God, I finally get to see somebody represented in this blogger influencer space because let's be real, a lot of our fashion bloggers and influencers, although they're plus size, everybody's claim to fame is an apple shaped size 24. We have 5 million people who look like that. Or we have people who are my size, but they refuse to coin themselves extended size because I don't want to be labeled. No, you don't want to seem like the largest person
you
on
don't
the
want that
spectrum.
label. You're
Right.
talking
And
about the other label.
I personally was like, I don't care. Like, it is what it is. This is who I am. And that helped build the audience. After a while, it became like it just started growing and it was not something that I could control. And I
So
just
that's part of it
wrote
too.
it off and was
Like,
like, I don't care. Like,
so that's part of it too. So like even with the documentary, and you also are a good example. So with the documentary, they bought the 10,000 followers for them, right? And then their followers continue to grow because there's something about social media, not even social media, people in general, right? That people love to follow people that other people are following. And that's why people who go viral blow up so much. It's because, oh, a bunch of people are following them. They must have something there. So let me follow them. So someone could have the same content for like 10 years.
talk
Nobody's
about
really
it.
following them, and then they go viral, and then they have a ton of followers. And from there, they will continue to get more followers. And that's part of why people buy followers, is because they know if someone rolls up on the page and sees 2,000 followers, they might be like, that they roll up on the page and see 10,000 followers, they're more likely to follow
But am I
simply
the only
because that
one
person has that.
on the planet who does not sneeze at a 2K following? Like, I don't sneeze at a 100 person follow because here's what I think.
One of my favorite people to follow right now only has like 100 followers, and I want everyone to follow her because she's brilliant.
Who is she? What's her name?
I'll send you her info later.
No, I wanted you to plug her.
No, I want to plug it out, right? You keep talking, I'll look it up.
Okay, so one of the things that here's what I think about. We can sneeze and say, "Oh, you only have 100 followers," but like on any given day, if 100 people were sitting in your house watching what you were doing, listening to you talk all day, you would be overwhelmed. So we're gonna sit up here and act like 100 followers is not a lot. It's a lot because that's 100 more people introduced to your life that were not there before. So the fact that we
Yep.
even put like this quantity or quality of measure on the quantity drives me nuts. I'm like, on any given day, you could not walk out your front door and get 100 people to listen to what you had to say. You couldn't. So the fact
By
that
the way, her name is
yeah,
Blair Hampton, and her screen name is Warm and Fuzzy, Fozzie. She has like 1,200 followers, but she should have more because she is constantly talking about race issues, which is an issue I talk about a lot. But she brings great content, great posts. She breaks it down. She's unapologetically Black and comes from that viewpoint. She calls out every and anyone. Like yesterday, I was on one of her posts because one of the cops involved in Breonna Taylor's death is getting a book published
he's
about
not.
it.
He's not.
Yeah,
He
so
is
he
not.
is.
No, no, no.
So
He's
yeah,
not.
she is great.
They pulled it.
Yeah.
They pulled his book because they were like, this is not going to be a thing. Well,
Well,
the
Simon and
publishing
Schuster
company,
pulled. Yeah,
the
the
publishing
publishing company,
company that was supposed to, they were with Schuster and I want to say Simon. They
Simon and
blocked
Schuster.
it. Yeah, they were just like, nah. So I don't know what's going to become of that, but yeah, follow her, you guys. Here's my thing. So I recently joined. I was invited to join something called the Atlanta Creative Collective here in Atlanta, and it's comprised of different influencers and bloggers in the Atlanta metro area. And what I will say is, out of the seven of us, I knew. Let me see, Daya, Kay, Britta, Tier. I knew four of them really well. And the other two young ladies, one of them I knew in passing, but we never had like we had great pleasant exchanges, and there was only other one woman that I didn't know at all. However, knowing them, looking at their pages and things like that, these are women who I always tell people like, yeah, I have a larger following, but I don't curate content in the way that other bloggers and influencers do because I don't.
Yeah,
I'm
same.
telling you right now. I'm
My
gonna
page
do
is
what I
all
want to do.
over the
Like
place.
I'm like no
Yep.
frills. You're getting the bare basics from me. These are women who literally invest like in editing apps and not to like Photoshop their bodies, but like to really make sure the pictures are clean.
And their
They're
pages
investing in
look so nice.
photographers. They have themes. They have everything. And I'm just like, yes, this won't be me, but yes, like,
I'm the same
and
way. I'm like, I won't do it.
most of them are under 10K.
That's what I'm
It's
saying. Like
5K.
they're putting.
And only one other woman, she recently she hit 10K, and then all of a sudden, which shout out to my boo, Brit underscore Dazzle, Britta Tabor, you guys will love her. She just hit like 22K. Like she had a viral moment, I guess.
Mm,
But I love that when I asked for analytics, because we put together an EPK, I was so in love with her analytics because she has like a 7% male following. So it's all women. Her engagement is off the charts. And this is someone, she has probably better engagement than some people who probably have 100K following.
mm.
Um, and what I loved about it was just to know that, like, I was glad to see her get her shine. I'm like, because this is a woman who has been putting in the work. Like, she really cares about what she does, but she also has a mission and a message. And that I support 100%. And the women that I'm having the privilege to work with, all of them do such beautiful work. And I'm like, y'all want me? And y'all, I'm not that person. Like, and it's disappointing to me because here in Atlanta, there's a lot of gatekeeping that happens, and I'm sure it happens in other cities, but I can only speak to the city that I live in, right? And so
Right.
just knowing the industry here, and there's like this gatekeeping that happens. Like you have those who the OGs, as they're called, and it's like where they're in this position where they could possibly pave the way and open the doors for those who are coming behind them. It's like they're more concerned with holding their status instead of
Mhm.
really helping those coming behind them. And I'm like, you're in such a unique position to
Right.
really, usher in like the new generation who are doing great work. And instead, they would much rather recycle the jobs and the recommendations amongst themselves and people that we clearly know are your homies because you guys are photographed together often. You do these influencer events together, and it's it's like a cesspool as far as I'm concerned, like, because no growth is coming from it. Yet everybody loves to speak to women and empowerment and affirmations and all this stuff. And I'm just like, yeah, but you only mean that amongst your circle of friends and for the people who are going to get on your on your pages and
Yeah.
dicky everything you do. And that's just not real. You know what I mean? So I'm hoping with the Atlanta Creative Collector group, we're able to really create a safe space
So what
and
is the
community.
purpose of that? That's a great question, because I'm wondering, like, what does he share with everyone, like the purpose of the
Oh
collective?
yeah, for sure. So exactly, we want to create a safe space. We want to put new brown pretty women on the map. We want to create content to really showcase body diversity because from the largest to the smallest in the group, we have a good range of bodies.
Mm.
We want to show that fashion can be done on all body types, whatever your taste and your style is. All of us have different ranges of comfort. So we just kind of want to showcase the diversity, the talents of the individuals too, because while we have a collective mission, each of us all have our own separate goals. So that also helps to draw, an audience back to our individual pages and things like that, and just to help usher in a new generation of creators and not to gatekeep, but really like, y'all want the information here, man, like let's share. Like this is not something we need to charge for. Like this is not something that requires, the sign or the stamp of approval of a tastemaker. Like we want people to come ask questions. If you want to collaborate, we're down, we're open. You have an artistic, and the thing about it is you might want to collaborate with the collective, and whatever you're trying to do may not necessarily align with everybody, but there's somebody in here who I'm sure it will. And that's just another way to connect and network. So we just really want to create a vast network of creators in the Atlanta metro area. We see dope things happening like with the Nashville Blogger Collective. And it's like, why isn't Atlanta ever gotten on board with this? Because we're too stuck up
Right.
and too bougie and sedity. But we're hoping to shift that. We're hoping to shift that spirit. It's a lot of people in the Atlanta metro area who feel away about the plus industry, but they won't say anything because they're terrified of being blackballed by those who hold power. And fortunately, I'm one of those people who I don't care because
Right.
my mission is not the same as most of them. So like I'm willing to put my head on the chopping block, so to speak, and like take the hits if I have to, if it means I get to be truthful and honest about my experience in this industry and help somebody else have a better experience. So that's really the goal. Like I get tired of buzzwords,
Mm.
authenticity, genuine, sisterhood, empowerment. Like if your empowerment costs me money, I don't want it. Like I don't want it. I don't want it. Like if your empowerment consists of only the people who look like you, only people who dress like you, only people who tell you how wonderful and great you are, like if you're not down to learn or be challenged to learn something different, like that's not empowerment.
Yeah.
You want fans, and I'm a heavy proponent of not calling people fans.
Well, I think and I think we probably, I think we spoke about it in a recent episode. But yeah, there's definitely a difference between people who want to build a community and people who want fans. And you can tell by the way they interact with people and things like that. And there's definitely a difference.
Yeah, and I'm not interested. If your goal is to be famous and to have fans, like go for it. That's your goal. It's not mine.
Right.
So I have felt very much not a part of the plus industry. Like I know I'm visibly a fat body and people identify me as being in the plus community because I'm plus, but that's where the line stops. Like, yeah, you've seen me do like D and co-work and things like that, not because I'm like banging down people's doors. Like offers come along if they seem dope enough. You have clothing in my size. That's why I've accepted a lot of work, because I'm like, a lot of women don't know where to shop. That's like the biggest
Right.
question I get when you are my size, especially when I was at my largest. So it's like, I feel like almost obligated to do it in a good sense though, like because I
Mhm.
know that access is something that they deserve and maybe they don't know. So let me be that person. But other than that, I don't play the game well. You know what I mean? Like I'm everybody like I got so much unsolicited advice when like I became more known, right? And it was everything from oh, you got to pick a niche, like you have to pick a topic and stick
Yes,
to
I
it.
get that. Like, figure
And
out your target audience. I don't have a
yeah,
target
like
audience. I'm me.
I'm like, well, my target audience varies. Like I'm a black woman. I'm
Right.
a mother, I'm a wife, I have a disability, I speak to mental health issues. Oh, I got a kid who's on the spectrum, so on and so forth. I have children who deal with mental health issues. Like, so now I'm parenting children within the mental health, spectrum. Like, there's so many. I also like fashion. I'm on a weight loss journey. Like, there's so many facets to me, and it didn't seem fair to myself to limit myself to one niche place and
Yep.
get stuck there. And there's a lot of people who struggled when the pandemic came to pivot. They didn't know what to do because they were so used to doing that on camera in front of like a cute building in a banging outfit. They didn't know how to translate their content to
Yep.
adapt to what happened during the pandemic. Meanwhile, mental health has been my platform. So it wasn't a surprise when AP was writing mental health articles and inviting other mental health advocates to my social media platform or to my blog to write, because I have contributing writers. Thank you, Life for Ronnie, shout out. She writes beautiful articles. So it's like, people were struggling to find that balance. I've been able to speak to what it's like parenting children at home who are homeschooling during a pandemic. Like, having that versatility and not listening to all of the advice, the sage wisdom from a lot of the OGs who had established themselves, like, has afforded me opportunities outside of the fashion industry, which I have enjoyed more than the fashion industry. So I've kind of always felt very on the outskirts because I wasn't a cool kid. And honestly, like, that translates my entire life. I was never the cool kid growing up. You know what I mean? Like, as I got older, obviously I found space and community, but I still wasn't necessarily a part of a specific clique. I was able to fluidly move among different types of people, whether it was the nerds, the jocks, the cool kids or the uncool kids, because I maintained who I was through that process. And that is the same approach I've had to take now. In some ways, it does leave me out of a lot of things. People consider me problematic, or
You?
not. Oh
Problematic.
yeah, yeah,
Mm.
me, right? Yeah, I'm considered problematic to an
So
extent because
docile and so sweet. I can't
I
imagine.
know, right? But apparently, when I first came out, like, I really had moments on lives where I was just reading people for filth. I didn't drop names, but I'm like, hey, look, this was my experience. And that is what kind of helped build community, because these women were like, oh my God, I went through the same thing. Nobody says anything about it because there's like this thing. Like, if you talk about it, you won't have access to. And so even to this day, there are women who slide in my DMs when they're beefing with like their popular clique of friends. They'll come and
Mhm.
talk to me about it and drain their problems because it's a safe space. They know I'm not friends with any of these people.
Right.
I'm not going to say anything. And they also know I've already put it out there how I feel about it. So they
Right.
feel safe in being able to come talk to me. And then, they'll return when they make up with their friends and they're back to doing their blogger photos or whatever. But, it's left me on the outskirts. And sometimes that is isolating because it's hard. Sometimes it makes it difficult to be able to collaborate because our visions are so different. If
Mhm.
all you want is to be a socialite and to be seen and show up at red carpet events and like take pictures, that's cool. I don't want to do that. It
Mhm.
was fun. I had fun doing those experiences. Like, right now, people are gearing up to do the events, right? The network events are coming back because vaccines are a
Yeah.
thing. And people are hitting me up like, are you going? And I'm like, no. And in fact, in case you guys didn't know, in 2020, I said I wasn't attending any events, but then COVID happened. So it was like I didn't have to worry about it. I stand by that. I mean that. I'm only going to events that like align with my mission and things that really speak to me. So like, if Chronicon comes back, I will for sure hop a plane and go to New York to go attend that. But no shade to any of the fashion events or anything like that, unless I have a friend who is like in a fashion show or is vending. I'm not going.
Yeah.
I don't want to. It's the same people over and over again, showing up. Hey, girl, nice to see you, smiling on the pink, red, purple, whatever color carpet for these photo ops. Very,
Yeah.
you are able. I will never throw any shade. Like, I was able to meet you in person. I was able to network with other people and sometimes brands to kind of put a good word in. Like, we need some diversity here. But on the whole, to me, it's exhausting and not worth it. I don't want to do it. And so, being that that is the case, like, I know where that puts me in the grand scheme of things with the plus community, but I'm okay with it because I like what I do and I'm not having to fake it. I don't have to pretend to be on vacation somewhere like they were doing a fake famous when I'm not. And I'm like in my backyard, like,
I
I don't
do
think
have
it
to say
should.
though, on the other side of it with the plus size, and as someone who's very much newer to the plus size world, community, industry, and even then, like a lot of the stuff I speak to and do is outside of plus. But I will say that there is something awesome about going to those events and being around a lot of other plus size women, especially if it's not an experience that you've ever had. I remember my first one, the one where I met you in Atlanta. It was really the first major plus event I had went to, and I feel like you don't realize how much like you carry in your shoulders when you're constantly around smaller people and you're the larger body in the room, and like even with all your self-confidence, I got this, it's whatever, like you're there's still a bit noticeable. It's like kind of like when I come home to upstate New York and I'm back to being the only black face in a room when I go
Mhm.
out to eat places or when I go into the store and there's one black person and it's me. Like it's not horrible, but it's there's something there, you know? And so it's the same as being the only larger body around a bunch of thin people. And like there's something that's just really awesome about going to those events and being surrounded with other plus size people and just being like, you
Yeah,
know,
I can totally agree with that. Like, it was nice to go and not have to worry about, oh, I'm going to be the fattest person in the room. Is it a possibility I might be because I am on the larger end? Yeah, but there's also a strong possibility there will be other women my size too.
right,
And it was nice. The things that those are the things that I look to appreciate. Like, because it was definitely cool. Like I said, meeting you and networking with other women. Like that's how I met Marcy. That's how I met a lot of people, and I love that part. It's just all the other stuff that like I could do without. When I first my first couple of events, I loved it. By the second or third time that I was going, I was like, when it begins to feel like a job and not something fun
yeah,
to do, I don't want to do it.
right,
And that's no shade. Like if you like, there's still one plus event that I have not attended yet, and that's the Curvy Con, which is Garnet Style and CC Elisa. I have
mhm,
not attended that. I was considering doing it in 2019, but what ended up happening was Chronicon was a month later, and I'm like, I couldn't afford to go
yeah,
to New York twice and pay for a hotel because New York is expensive, baby.
mhm,
So I chose Chronicon because I felt like it aligned with me and
yeah,
where my mission was at the time. So if CurryCon comes back, I might possibly try to make the move to go do that because I've heard such great things
yeah.
about
I want to check it
the
out.
experience. Like, all right, let's do it. Let's go,
We
Namadi. Let's
should.
go.
Well, coming at you live, more than my size, live from KirbyCon.
Look, yes, maybe they'll let us come for free. Just as correspondence, but yeah. And I've heard great things about CurryCon, and if I go to that and that's wonderful, it might be something I do again, but maybe it won't be. I don't know that for myself. I like the big crowds. I do
Yeah,
prefer more intimate spaces. So
yeah,
like when I got to be a panelist at Fat Women of Color when they were here in Atlanta, that was such a beautiful and intimate experience, and there was no men. My husband didn't even come inside. Ivy Felicia, shout out. Her husband was there and then he
I'm
was
actually talking
gone.
to her tomorrow. Well, by
Yay!
the time this airs, oh wait, this is airing tomorrow, right? Is this
Yeah.
tomorrow? So go, if you're watching this, go back to my page, and I'm actually having a conversation with Ivy for Self Love Sunday.
Yeah, I love her. She was amazing and she's such a kindred spirit. And the space and environment she created was probably the best experience I had. And it brought me to tears because at that particular juncture in life, I was really struggling with inflammation and pain. Like I hadn't quite gotten a handle on it. I was going through a lot physically. Like my mobility that you guys see now is way better than what it was then. I don't even think I had a rollator at that point. I was still at a point where I was just kind of like, I am not ready to use like the scoot around and things like that. Like going to that event is kind of what opened the door for me to get to that point. But when I tell you the women who were there, it was like, hey, you can't get up and do this at this moment because usually my husband's my right hand. He's always
Yeah,
with me. And so he'll go get my meals and my drinks. These women swooped in. My Fly X, I love her. Like, they like, oh no, girl, sit down. Like, I'll get your food for you. Even though they could see I was physically like in pain, but I was like determined to be Miss Independent. And they
yeah,
humbled me real quick. And it wasn't in a malicious way. It
yeah,
was, nah, have a seat. When there was music and movement, and I couldn't stand and do what everybody else is doing. They came and stood around me, like, and we danced together while I got to be seated. I get
oh,
chills just thinking about it right now. That was empowering. That felt
Yes.
like affirmation. That felt like sisterhood and women who cared. And were there
And
photo
everybody
ops?
does all those things without them saying, hey, this is about this, 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 and this. So you're like, they just were. It just was the experience. It just was those things. And that's how you felt those things. I feel like when you have to go out of your way to shout, like, hey, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this, you're probably
And
not
they
it.
didn't
Otherwise, I don't have to shout. Otherwise, you wouldn't have
they
to shout.
didn't advertise it like that either. It was just
Yeah,
like, this is going to be a
exactly.
safe space for Black fat women of color. And even though there were other women there who were not Black, it was okay because they were there to learn.
Yeah.
And I connected with women there. And one of my boos came that I wasn't even expecting her to come. And then I got to learn something about her that I didn't know, that she shared like this event in her life that she survived that almost killed her. And it gave me a whole new look at her
Mhm.
and even what she represents just by still standing and being here. So it was a lot more, it felt empowering without all of the, buzzwords that had to go around it to say that this is empowering. And it was small enough so that you could really engage with one another. It wasn't, like a group of women, because what I have learned is like I still struggle with anxiety, and being in large groups of things really like triggers me, and my triggers are my responsibility. So I'm never like, no, don't have a big a convention. It's
Right.
not fair. Like I just cope with it and deal with it the best way that I can. But it felt more connection than going into a space where it's a whole lot going on all at once. Now, going to large events, I've had the opportunity to have like pockets of conversations with people, and it's been cool, and I love that aspect of it. Like whenever I go to these events, I'm never like in the mix. You will find me in a corner somewhere like with three other women, and we'll just be talking or whatever, and like every couple of hours like I'll move locations. But I prefer intimacy, and I just think that might be something that's just coming with my age and just how I am. Like I just prefer more
Well,
like
I think
connection
that
like that.
connection is good. And I also, and people have different opinions about networking. That's totally fine. But for me, for networking, I prefer networking like that because I used to do the thing where it's like work the room, speak to everybody, blah, blah, blah. Well, then I leave and I have a stack of business cards. Who did I talk to about what, when, where, and why? I don't know. And like, and then really what happens with those? Like maybe I send a general email, and I found that the output or whatever from that experience was far less than if I would just go and say, I'm going to have really good conversations with 3 or 4 people where we genuinely have good conversation, genuinely connect. Now I'm sending you an email like, hey, we talked. It was nice meeting you. I'm glad we were able to talk about blah, blah, blah. Just wanted to follow up. And to me, that is a successful networking experience. And it took a while to get there because I've always been taught from the school of talk to everybody, but really it does nothing for me. Talking to everybody gets me a stack of cards, and then they have a stack of cards. And do they remember me? Maybe, maybe they don't.
I've
Versus
got a
having
secret.
actual conversations.
I've got a secret, and I know it's gonna sound crazy, and I don't care for anybody's judgment. But when I do this, you made a really good point, because I walked away like the first time with a clutch full of business cards, and I was trying to like decipher who was who. So now what I do, hey, can I have your IG? I will add their IG and take their card as well. But I use the notes app on my phone, and I will write down the person's name and like a quick hand note of what we talked about so that I can remember.
Good. Yeah.
Because otherwise, I will not. Like, and I felt awful because like I went to the last PCF I went to, like somebody rolled up on me and they were like, "Oh, hey, girl!" Like they were so excited to see me. They were talking to me, and I'm just like racking my brain. I don't know who's this. I don't know when I met them.
Yep.
Like when did? And she's like, "Yeah, we met at TCF 2017." I'm like,
Girl.
do we follow each other? Like I was just like in struggle mode, and I was just like, where's my handy dandy notebook? No, I just like it was such a struggle. So like that's what I do, honestly, because when you're going into those big spaces, like you're gonna meet a lot of people, and every connection is not going to be meaningful. We know that because you're
Sure.
getting snapshots of people and conversations. But I asked for the IG because it gives me an opportunity to scroll through,
Mhm.
learn what you're about, especially if you have an IG page that's really thorough, like if your
Yeah.
bio filled out, all those things, if you have a website. Because here's the frustrating thing for me in these networking spaces is with all of these aspiring influencers, nobody has a website half the time. And I'm just like, can we get an actual website so we know what your about me is, what your mission, what you do? I don't care if your goal is to be an Instafot model. Like, keep a website with a gallery, like
Yeah.
on WordPress or Tumblr or wherever, so we can see pictures. Whatever it is you do, you should always own something and have something that explains who you are, what you represent, and what you do. Because if your IG is some random like Drake rap quote or Migos, and like your zodiac sign and like some catchy cute little phrase, like that doesn't tell me anything.
Right. Plus, especially if you're someone like me and you who doesn't have like a particular niche, like if you go to my page, you can kind of tell what I do, but not really, because I do all the things. And then,
So you actually, I don't know, I was actually, snooping through your page the other day because I was trying to find a picture of you, and you don't really have like pictures of you full body. You have a lot of videos and you
and
have a lot of interviews. And as I was scrolling and getting frustrated because when we were preparing for Evie in the interview, I was
yeah,
just kind of like, but as I was scrolling, like your cover photos for your videos are very thorough. So like we know, with the exception of maybe TikToks, but we know like this is a Thursday thought or mental whatever or every man counts. Like you're really thorough. So you're really good about that. So when I'm scrolling, I understand that you are a person who is heavily involved in social aspects of
mm,
community, like whether it is mental health, whether you are, and for the empowerment of Black men, teaching racism. Like it's very clear and obvious what you do. Is it like a
yeah,
niche in the sense of like, oh, she's a racist, educational professor?
yeah,
No, but we know that what you do is very much rooted in sociology, which is good. That's good enough for me. Like I get what you do.
absolutely. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, like you're really good about that. So don't sleep on what you've done, because if I've gone to other people's pages and they have boatloads of memes and
Yeah,
videos, I don't know what they're about.
yeah, yeah,
Doesn't say it in the caption. It's just like reposts, and then randomly, sporadically, you'll see a picture of
yeah,
them, maybe.
yeah,
And I'm like, even with your TikToks where you're like dancing in movement, you're thorough in your caption about like, all right, like, so I'm trying to get comfortable. I need a caption that I can read it so that if it's not posted in the video, like that I can understand
yeah.
what your purpose is. So you're really good about that. And I think you've done an excellent job, even as social media correspondents, because we see you doing the things. You're like interviewing people, you're talking to people, you're promoting things. And I'm like, that is what social media correspondents do. Yeah, I get it. This is what she does. Like,
Oh,
kudos
great. I
to you.
appreciate that. Speaking of websites, I do need to finish updating mine. That's what I'm doing after this conversation. And yeah, I mean, I do all the social things, and then, like I'll do like my makeup or my dancing, because I feel like it's still important to do the things I love. And I love that stuff. Like, is it, sometimes I'll try to like add messages to make it have a little bit of a purpose, but I don't also think everything has to have a purpose. Some things can just be fun. Like I did a makeup video the other day and I sent it to my friend and she's like, I don't understand the purpose of this. I'm like, there is no purpose.
Doing
I
makeup.
looked plain and I look pretty and it's to a song. That's it. It was a moment of fun because it made me feel good. Like that's okay. So I have that on my page too, and I'm okay with that. Yeah, I just talk about all the different things. And I know sometimes things will clash and it's whatever, because like I said, I really want people who vibe with me, and I'm never going to curate my page to other people. I'll curate my page to myself and what I like and what I want. So
I totally agree. I think that there's a delicate balance when you are a public figure, and I don't mean like you're a famous public figure, but when you're a
yeah,
public figure, whether it's because you have a business, a brand, or whatever it is you do, you're promoting something, however you show up, right? There's a delicate balance of giving enough business and enough personal,
yeah,
because people nowadays, the way they consume business is by relating to you, your story,
yeah.
the person behind the brand.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to walk that fine line of, you don't need to know all my business, but I want you to know enough about who I am that you feel compelled to want to support my brand and what I'm doing because you like me.
Yeah.
I'm palatable to you. Now,
And that's a
I
huge
just want
thing
to encourage,
too.
you
Is
don't have to like me to shop AP Young Beauty, because you can look good whether you like me or don't like me. It doesn't matter. But
Which is true, but liking a person, and there is some of that, like people, once they connect with you, and it's so funny too, because people are like, oh, influencers, oh, bloggers, blah, blah, blah. But the people who do it right, first of all, do you know how hard it is to get people to like you just for being you? Like literally, it's not, you're not reading a script, you're not like doing this perfectly curated things that studies have been done. You're just you, and people like and connect with you. That's actually harder than people will think. Also, putting out constant content, harder than people will think. But when people rock with you, they tend to really rock. Like with you, like listen, Alicia, I did not need more eyeshadow. I really didn't. But I loved you and I wanted to support your business. So I got more eyeshadow, and I think that with a lot of people. Like I just bought a book from a friend. I haven't read it yet, but I bought it because my friend wrote a book. You know what I mean? And I think that happens a lot where people really do just want to support you.
And I think that's the good aspect of social media, is that you do get to give people snapshots of who you are as a person, and it allows them to make the decision whether they want to support you or not. And this is why I don't look at people as fans, because fans just kind of like, they ride for everything you do. I don't need you to do that. If you disagree with something, that's cool, that's fine, as long as you can express it in a respectful way, or you've been invited to express it. Like, I don't need your validation.
Well,
And I
and
know
oh,
there are some people who argue that, and they're like, everybody's on social media for validation. No, like, I'm
not
on social
really.
media to make a sale, for one. Um, pay me. But also because I have a mission that I'm trying to accomplish, and that's fine. However, um, I don't need you to just love everything that I do because it's gonna make me feel better about myself. Did you read it? Did you get the point? I'm
Well, I
cool
was
with
going to
that.
say that, like, that's the thing too about having people who are part of your community and who rock with you versus fans. The problem with fans is that they tend to put people on these pedestals and they expect perfection from them. And then when they don't do or say exactly what they want or think exactly how they feel, they're like, I'm out. To me, you were never really a follower. Like, if someone can say one wrong thing that you don't like and you're out, and I'm not talking about like blatantly horrible stuff, I'm talking about just like disagreeing with them and you're out, like, that's not a true supporter to me. And I never want people to forget that I'm human. And I never want people to lose the fact that sometimes you'll agree with me and sometimes you won't agree with me. And just keep it like I'm a real person. I
Right.
think as people get followers, as people have like see more people following them, like the higher they rise, the less humanity people assign to them. And that's a real problem.
Right. And I hear people say this, well, they have to expect it. And why should they expect that they owe you anything?
Right.
And that is, when I can't believe, like, the other day, people were like getting into disagreements on my page
Yeah.
about the scale. And I saw you and another follower,
I had to say
she
something.
felt a way about my trigger warning not being appropriate. Soon after you said something, other people said stuff. And so she DM'd me and she was really like upset that people were like coming at her neck. And I just explained to her,
I
like,
kept it polite. I came
you
politely.
did. But everybody else was not as polite. So I ended up just deleting the whole entire thread. And not 5 hours later, somebody else left the same comment she did. And I was like, am I going to let this sit here? Not today. I just deleted it because I'm
Just
like,
delete it.
I don't want that kind of energy. But the fact that people do feel like they can come and tell you how to do things on your page, I get that she asked in a really polite manner, like, which I didn't have beef with. But there are a lot of people who are not that polite. And they do assume that because, your post showed up in their feed, they can come and tell you they feel a way about it. And I'm just like, yo, I use that scroll button just very, very freely,
Like our page is like our home. So are you coming like it may be public, but it's still our space. Like we're putting in it what we want to put in it. So when you come in and you're like, you need to do this or do that or do that, like you're essentially coming into our home and telling us like how we should decorate and how we should do stuff. And unless I asked you, I don't want your opinion. Thank you.
Right. And
Yeah.
I'm just, I'm not, I was not always the most reasonable person. So I won't even front like that. But I feel like at this point in my life, I have grown to be a mostly reasonable person. I'm still working on it. So I don't feel like
Mostly.
I'm unfair, when people come to my space. Like, I try to hear everybody out.
Yeah.
But like, even the other day, I started out feeling okay about a comment somebody left, but then I was like annoyed because I had shared about trigger warning, my GYN telling me to starve myself. Actually, I go into depth for my YouTube video that's dropping on Monday with my makeup review. But someone in the comments was like, I mean, did he just suggest fasting to you and his delivery method was wrong?
Oh, I
Because he
saw
said
that.
nothing. So I'm like, all right, let's discuss this. And I'm like, yo, the one thing Alicia doesn't do is cap. Like, it's not even in my vocabulary. I'm not ever going to paint this picture to give it more dramatics or more effects. Like, this is
Right.
what he said. And I've repeated this story at least 3 times now. And I'm just like, I know it might be hard to digest that medical professions behave this way, but look at the astronomical amount of women who are
Mm.
coming forward and saying, hey, this has been my experience, or I've experienced this medical
That's
bias.
such a
So it's
pet
like
peeve of mine. Like, not even with the medical, but with everything. With
everything. But I
everything,
feel like
when
because we're
someone,
talking specific to weight,
yeah,
and
but
I'm
like
going to say
my
this,
my issue is like when people do this thing where like because I didn't experience it or because
right,
I
is that really what
experienced it,
happened?
that something would happen, then you must be wrong in what you're saying. Like, no, it wasn't really
But
the weight.
not.
It wasn't really a race thing. Like, you're just interpreting it
But
wrong.
when it comes to the discussion of fat bodies and weight, that bias is so ingrained, people don't even realize it. You're discounting my story because in her comment, she's basically like, some people just don't want to have to, do the work or,
Mhm.
and not for nothing, it does work. And I'm just like, that's not the issue. I'm like, I'm very well aware
Right.
of what intermittent fasting is. I'm the one who told the doctor, like, I've already tried that, done that, know how this goes. Like, I know what that is. This is not him saying intermittent fasting. This is him telling me to starve myself. Those were his words. And I'm like, the fact that you think this is more about me not wanting to be accountable for my size and being sensitive as a fat person, because that's how people feel like, oh, you fat folks are just all sensitive and people say anything about your weight. Well, consider the fact of why are people saying things to us about our weight when we didn't ask?
Right.
Now, I'm not pissed
You didn't ask.
because I'm the one who posted a picture of a scale and left it open for discussion. I'm cool with that because I've reached a point in my life where I'm not a slave to the number on the scale and I'm not finna be embarrassed about something that it just is what it is at this point in my life. So the
Yeah.
fact that I could do that, be open and transparent, and you could still find a way to try to make this be about, well, it's because of your fat feelings. Like that is the stuff right there that I'm like, I
Mhm.
get unreasonable. At this point, I'm going to get unreasonable. And I try to be really tactful. And I always laugh because people have been like tagging me and stuff. They're just like, I love how you read people without cursing. And I'm like, yo, but I be wanting to. I can't
Right.
even lie to you. Like
Right.
sometimes the first thing in my mind is not a very pleasant thought,
Mm.
but I've had to learn to stop, be quiet,
Mhm.
and think before I speak.
You already know I can't get on Twitter because my Twitter thumbs, like, for whatever reason, the amount of like grace and like quietness I'm able to like, my ability to just scroll past nonsense on Facebook and on Instagram, there's something about Twitter, I lose it. I am like,
I
because
get
they
on
say
Twitter and I'm doing
crazy.
like this, and then I'm
Yeah,
backspacing everything because I'm like, I'm gonna say some wild stuff that I like.
I have to
Once it's
decide.
out there, you can't take it back.
Yeah, well, if you ever scroll through my Twitter, it's just me arguing with
Oh, I have. I'm always pleasantly like, not even pleasantly. I'm always just like, wow, I did not know Namani gets down like this. Okay, all
I
right. She was feeling her way,
gather them respectfully and intelligently.
and that's
Like,
the
I
thing.
still keep it classy, but I will speak
But
up about nonsense.
I will also say what rings true in my head is something my mother used to always tell me, and I know a lot of people disagree with this, and which is your business, that's fine, about the cussing. And it's like, that's just a way to express your anger. There's nothing wrong with it. And my mom used to always tell me when I was a child, like, you need to learn how to express your thoughts without using cuss words because unfortunately people will belittle what you say because you started throwing F bombs and S words all around. And to them, you're not able to articulate an intelligent thought. That's been ingrained in my head since I was a child. Have I used cuss words? Of course. A lot. I used to have the mouth of like, I went sick. Like, it was like growing up really reserved. And then, like, I went to that stage.
Yeah,
And now I'm
me
just at that point
too.
where I've leveled out and I understand it now, what she was saying to me. So, like, I'm very, very cognizant of how I speak to people, even when I'm delivering a message you may not necessarily like.
Yeah.
There's a
Because if you
specific
deliver it the wrong way, they just don't want, they won't even hear it. And so
right.
like, for me with communication, I'm always like, do I want to be right or do I want to be heard? And I think that sometimes people just want, like, are you speaking just to speak because you want to get it out? Or are you truly trying to get the person to understand what you're saying? So yes, I could go off, like, even when I say like, oh, I go off on people, I have a little sass, but I still keep it respectful because I'm still trying to make a valid point and I need you to understand the point I'm making. And I know me wilding out isn't going to make that happen. So I
Right.
try to come from a place where you're still able to understand sometimes what I'm trying to say.
There's a scripture that always makes me think about like seasoning your words with salt. That's how they refer to it. And really, there's a lot of people who are like, I'm gonna tell it like it is type of person. I'm gonna say what I'm gonna say. And I used to be like that, but I'm like, you catch more flies with honey than you do vinegar. And really learning tech was is difficult for me. Like it's a challenge and it's one that I've risen to the challenge, and I've worked on. I don't always get it right because there are still
It's
people
not
who
easy, which is why
Mhm.
it drives me crazy when people are like, oh, well, people just want to take the high horse to be nice because that's the easy road. You think keeping my mouth shut when I'm angry is the easy road? Trust me, it is not. It
Ooh,
is not the easy
it's
road to
not the
take the
easy
high
route.
road. It is hard. It
And
is
it's
hard to
like,
keep a mouth shut
what I'm
sometimes.
not going to do is let you see me sweat. What I'm not going to do, I will scream and do whatever I need to without you ever visually seeing it. And
Mhm.
here's the thing, it may not get across to you, but there's someone else who read that and it got
Yes.
across to them. And
Yep.
that to me matters more than anything. And sometimes it's frustrating. It brings me to the point of tears, not because you've hurt my feelings, but when I'm angry,
Oh, yeah. I'll cry because I'm trying so hard not to kill you.
like, and it reminds me of when I was in school and I used to want to throw hands so bad, and like I couldn't because I didn't want to get suspended. Well, when I was younger and cared, because when I got to high school, it was like, let's slap hands up. But like when I was younger, and I used to be so mad because I'm like, I know if I get into this fight, my mom is gonna trip and like it's gonna be this thing. Self control is one of the hardest things to practice. And
Absolutely.
people I get into conversations with now and they're just like, it's, you could just indulge. And I'm like, I've done that. I've gone without the self-control. And in no way did it ever benefit me. It felt great in the moment, but
Mm,
those consequences that it carried
yes.
afterwards, short term or long term, they
Yes.
last. There are things that still play in my head now
Mhm.
from years ago that I still
Mhm.
have to grapple with because those scars don't go away. So as hard as it is to practice self-control, it's one of the qualities that I try to work on as hard as I can. It's not
Yep.
always easy. Like me and my spending.
Well, and I mean, we've
I'm
talked
working
about
on
it
it.
before, like especially in anger. Like I take the higher horse and I have that self-control, not because I love it, but because I'll be damned if I have to apologize to you because I handled
Yeah,
the wrong you did to me
oh,
incorrectly.
and I hate the
I
apology
will
tour.
do
Like I
it.
hate the apology tour.
I
Like
hate it. So I
even
will
with me and my husband, I'm like,
that's
ooh, I don't
yep.
want to
I
apologize
can't
to
stand it.
you. You
I
make
can't
me
stand it.
mad, and I should have been able to, but even then, like apologizing to your kids,
It's
like
important. It's
you
important. I
have
just
to
don't want
do
to do
it,
it. I
right?
will do it, but I will do everything to make sure I don't have to do it if I don't have
And
to.
there we go. And that's where I try to focus for the most part. I'm like, if I lose it, I'll
Yep.
be apologizing, and if I lose it publicly, I'm having to apologize publicly.
Yeah.
So I mean, like, so this all ties in with just social media and people you interact with. So you have,
Oh, and also
unfortunately,
really quick though, don't forget because you just said something really important. If you lose it publicly, you have to apologize publicly. I feel like sometimes people forget that they're on like their social media space when they respond to things. Like I saw someone make like a wildly inappropriate comment and like it was a business owner. And I'm just like, so I went to their page and I normally am like, oh, support small business. I would never do business with that person. And that's something to keep in mind as well when you're out there, whether you're arguing with people or faking the fame as we
this
started
is
talking about
why
from the
when I'm
beginning.
on the shade
Don't
room, I keep it cute
forget.
and I keep it scrolling because I'm like,
Don't
somebody's gonna
forget.
go back
Yes.
and
Yes.
realize
And
that
I will, and commenting on stuff though is sometimes a way to get more engagement. Like I've had people come and start following me because of a comment I responded to on something else. But just know people check your page when you comment on stuff. If you're commenting on things, people are checking your page. And so, especially if your page is linked to your business, you might want to keep it cuter than the way some of you keep it out there.
absolutely. So we're gonna wrap it up here, so we're not like holding you guys hostage for more than what we've already had. But of course, we want to hear your thoughts on fake fame. How do you guys feel about influencers? Because I know that many of us we follow people who are influencers and bloggers some of us are those things. How do you feel about it? How do you find a delicate balance in how you choose to follow your influencers? Is there any hard stops for you guys that make you be like, nah, I can't support them? And if you are an influencer or a blogger, how do you find your balance between your mission, your message, and not getting caught up in the fake fame that a lot of social media has brought to the forefront? So let us know, sound off in the comments, but of course, make sure you're following us on More Than My Size _ the show on Instagram and leave your thoughts. We're going to make this a question,
Yep.
a spill it question, and we really want to hear you guys' feedback on that.
Have a great day, guys. Thank you.
Bye.